You may not remember what you were doing when you were growing up, but I'm sure you remember how it sounded. Since the beginning, games have trained our brains through different kinds of repetition. Sound kind of created a reward feedback loop. And the farther you go back, the more interesting it gets as far as sound design goes, particularly in the 8-bit and 16-bit era. With all the early consoles, desktop computers, and arcade machines having such limited memory, you ended up getting really iconic bit crush sounds and very simple melodies and sound effects. And even in that era, they had sound that made you feel a certain way or made you feel good. Like the Super Mario Flagpole soundtrack that really made you feel like you've completed something. The melodies were simple and catchy, and that locked them in our brains forever. And to this day especially, nothing sounds quite the same as being forced with hardware limitations and memory constraints to have completely bit-crushed audio. Especially around this time, late 80s, early 90s, I mean, they were pulling off some real black magic. Streets of Rage 2 came out in 1992, and the music seems almost impossible for the time. And after a couple decades of chiptunes and sound effects that were 255 bytes or less, the hardware was getting better, newer sound cards were coming out for computers, and games as a whole were getting a lot more serious. And this was an awkward time with some growing pains, especially with voice acting. They were looking for something a lot more serious and complex story-wise, but didn't necessarily have the talent available to them at the time. This led to some of the most awkward and fucking goofy voice acting known to man.
What is this?
Wow, what a mansion! Stop it! Don't open that door!
But Chris is...
What is it?
Maybe it's Chris.
Resident Evil is definitely like one of the outliers as far as just really, really fucking bad. But I figured I'd throw it in here because it has always stuck out to me. Sound design was improving as a whole, though, and it did make a huge improvement, especially in things like horror games, because things actually sounded like they were supposed to sound. Now, watching this scene as an adult today, that was really fucking stupid, but the locker, when he opens it, sounds pretty fucking good, and at the time, that was really fucking scary. Sound design in games was always such a deliberate art form, but now it was becoming something that was convincing. Now we need to talk about the greatest leap in gaming, which was the second wave of 3D, where they really kind of figured it out. Sound design was getting better, and they had a lot more memory to create a more authentic sound. And they weren't quite there as far as recording voices. There was quite a bit of compression in terms of file size to get all the dialogue into their games, because at this point you were still putting games onto a disc. Everything had to fit onto a DVD essentially, and this created what I would consider some of the best sound in games. You had beautiful music, great sound effects, and the dialogue had quite a bit of warmth to it that created something that was extremely cozy at the time. And with the really compressed dialogue, you still had some really funny outcomes. Like, one of my favorite voice lines in games comes from Sumner from Gauntlet Dark Legacy.
Learn how to block.
And then one more interesting quirk was jungle and drum and bass were really popular in the 90s, and in the early 2000s a lot of games used like jungle and like acid and trance music for their games. About a year and a half ago, I actually made a track inspired by this moment in time using the PS2 main menu soundscape and Sumner's voice from Gauntlet.
The Scimitar of Decapitation.
So now at this point, games look better and they sound better too. This created an era where if you wanted your sound to stand out, you couldn't simply have the best audio quality. This was a time where if you had great graphics and great sound design, it didn't necessarily mean you were going to stand out. This is Black, and not a lot of people remember this game, but at the time it was pretty fucking high tech. The game looked good. It had pretty cool destruction on the environments. The animations were pretty crisp. The gun sounds were amazing. It even had depth of field when you reloaded or ADS'd. It was a really cool game. Now compare that to a game like Time Splitters 2, which is held up a lot better than Black has. They didn't go for a realistic art style, and they had funky music that was super memorable. The dialogue was cheesy as fuck, but it was hilarious. Guns and explosions sounded really unique to the game, and nothing sounded amazing, but it was memorable. And I mean, this game's archaic as fuck. I mean, even during this time, they were using that old GoldenEye aiming style where you have to aim in and move the cursor around your screen. It wasn't exactly easy to play. And this was a time where being strange was more memorable than aiming for something like realism. Just listen to the original Xbox main menu sound that would play every once in a blue moon. Shit's kind of fucking weird, and the intention was to make the Xbox sound like alien technology. I mean, it was kind of a huge leap at the time. And a lot of the Xbox launch games really did have some pretty amazing sounds. And right as the sixth console generation came to an end, they were really dialing everything in for a new kind of quality. And just like the generation before, this came with a whole new suite of sounds to create a whole new atmosphere behind new technology. No, I've had surround sound audio a few times throughout my life, and back then games were kind of just fucking loud. And the seventh generation kind of brought in a new audioscape with a lot higher fidelity, and games were beginning to sound really good. If you had high quality audio setups at the time, it was actually starting to matter. Now, I remember Halo being kind of an outlier here. Combat Evolved had 5.1 support, and Halo 2 and Halo 3 map pack discs actually came with a surround sound test suite. Check this out. Headphones on, please.
Speaker on that side. Speaker behind you over there. Speaker behind you over there. Center speaker.
Yeah, dude, tell me that shit ain't awesome. And if you made it this far, why don't you go ahead and hit like? Maybe click subscribe if you like listening to me not do any research and ramble on about shit I do know. And why don't you go ahead and comment different video game sounds and soundscapes that you remember so fondly. Now, as we creep towards the modern era and the advent of online gaming, we have a whole new slew of UI sounds that are going to be meant to keep us playing again and again. We now had a whole new slew of sounds that were Pavloving us into getting on the fucking game. You heard these different notifications and you immediately had to look to see who was hitting you up to play something tonight. Now, while these aren't necessarily game sounds, they have the exact same purpose. They give you this little dopamine loop of like, oh, who's contacting me right now? Ooh, what game are we gonna play? And with all the online games, there were now a lot more sounds that developers could use to reinforce the reward system in games. And as we circle back to the voice acting of this era, it wasn't voice actors in games that sounded like shit. It was just us. Microphones were kind of dog shit and added a level of annoyance and a level of charm to talking to your friends in a game or strangers.
Fuck you, Nick. On you little bitch. You can't play this game, man. Get out of the tank and then let's see who wins. I'm like #1 in support, so I'll kill you. Yeah, get out the tank next time and then let's see who will win, you little faggot.
Okay, I know how to get you recon, right? Okay, so, you have to go to the corner of Heretic, right? You have to crouch 18 million times, and then take off your sock, press your big toe on your Xbox power button and hold it there for 10 seconds. You're welcome. Fuck you. I'm just joking. I'm just...
Who's asking generally? Who's asking?
Yeah, it was pretty vicious back then. Not gonna lie. I think the only game that I play currently where people still call me the N-word is Rust. It's like gaming's last bastion for no words. It's kind of crazy. In a nutshell, gaming audio hasn't really changed in recent times. I mean, everything's kind of following the same ethos. You have a few outliers here and there that trying to capture that like 8-bit, 16-bit aesthetic, and they do so pretty effectively. I think I'm done with my old man ramblings for a while now. I'll see y'all this weekend for the Neo video. Big excitement for that one.